ask yourself one question. Do I feel lucky? Well, do you?
It's time to flip a coin and find out.
Well, we need to know what we're calling it for here.
We're calling it to see who's got the best sports knowledge here on the Coin Flip with Martin Kelly
and Jacob Zimmerman.
Flip it again. Welcome on back to the Coin Flip podcast. Jacob Zimmerman, Martin Kelly, and a special guest today, bringing along another Trailblazer legend, Nay. Welcome to the show. We are introducing you to the Hectic podcast me and Martin do every single week. We record this every Tuesday. We upload it sometime in the middle of the week, and we do what we do best. That's pick games in the NFL. Martin, we had a crazy week 6, but without further ado, Martin, I'm doing this podcast from Maryland. Martin, I'm guessing you're still in the Salt Lake City area as of right now, and Nay, I'm not even sure where you're at right now, but welcome to the show, Nay. Introduce yourself. How you doing, man?
Hey, man. I'm down in the St. George area still. I'm going to Utah Tech, so I'm down here. I'm still in Utah. Did you say you were in Maryland?
Yes, I'm up in Maryland. I am visiting my mom right now. But I've been living in North Carolina for the most part over the last couple of months or so.
Oh, nice.
Martin, as we like to typically kick things off, you always have a nice wrap, a nice breakdown of the previous week. Martina, what stuck out to you from week 6? A lot of crazy games, especially in that 4 o'clock hour out on the East Coast. A lot of big upsets, but Martin, where do you want to take this one first?
You know what? I'm going to simply put this in the nicest way. I don't know what in the frick happened this week. For some reason, underdog teams or misinterpreted teams at the beginning of the season saying they were going to be garbage, all of a sudden woke up this week and said, we're taking over the NFL. The Jets won. The Browns won over the Niners. The Bills almost lost to the Giants. The Chargers and Cowboys were trying to give the game away to each other last night. The Bears and the Vikings were trying to turn the ball over to each other from time to time. The Colts had chances to come back and beat the Jags. I mean, the Texans and Raiders, the Texans and Raiders, Raiders and Pats, Texans and Saints, like the Falcons and the Commanders. I don't know what was going on with this week. This week was just throw the script out of the book and don't follow it. Just go out and throw the football all over the place and see who wins and lands on the ball at the end. It was just, I don't know when the frick happened, Jacob. It was one hell of a week.
Martin, one hell of a week indeed. But to be fair, we both only missed on 2 games as far as matchups that we both picked incorrectly. And I'm sure all across the country, everybody can agree nobody saw the San Francisco 49ers dropping to the Browns with out there starting quarterback in Deshaun Watson. P.J. Walker was out there, arguably a third stringer for most teams in the NFL. And then, of course, the Eagles, who are riding undefeated as well. Believe it or not, Zach Wilson and Robert Saleh's Jets defense got it done over Philadelphia. But now I'm going to hand this one to you, man. What stuck out to you from week 6?
It was definitely the game you already touched on. It was the Browns 49ers game. And I did not see a single universe where that would happen, especially not without Deshaun Watson and stuff like that. But yeah, I think the 49ers just dropped that one. That one surprised me the most.
How about that Monday night game? I mean, the Cowboys, the Chargers, they were going back and forth. It seemed like both teams were practically trying to give the game away. Coaching mistakes after coaching mistakes have plagued both of these teams all season long. But all in all, the Cowboys got it done on a late interception off of Justin Herbert. But some other games, Nay, I know you're a big Lions fan. We're going to see how that bleeds into some of your takes around the NFC North this week. But how about those Lions taking care of the Bucs on the road?
Yeah, that was a crazy game. Lions came in there. I mean, the Lions are really hobbled with injuries and stuff. But everyone is sleeping on the Buccaneers defense right now. I mean, that defense is insane. It was a defensive battle. Super fun to watch. I'm glad the Lions were able to pull out that win. So
And of course, for my squad, the Carolina Panthers remain the only winless team, the only undefeated team in the NFL. They were up 14-0 against Miami, and despite the world live betting them, the refs couldn't do anything to stop Tyreek Hill, and they came storming back on a 42-7 run, leaving Tyreek Hill on one-on-one press man coverage on the outside. Just a great strategy against that guy. But Martino, you had your fair share of struggles this week with the Minnesota Vikings. How about them Bears?
Uh, well, what can I say? The Bears once again give me a reason to have a good time with drinking and having to forget some things for a short amount of time. Thank God for the Chicago Blackhawks and the Chicago Bulls. Their seasons are starting. They give me a reason to be distracted. Notre Dame football, they're on the rise. That's what I'm more happy about. They beat the living crap out of the Trojan Horse this past Saturday. I'm more happy about that one right there. Wish they didn't lose to Ohio State because they'd be in the national championship conversation. But the Trojan Horse is dead. I'm okay. The Bears are the Bears. One day they won't be who they are, and then I'll be happy. But for now, the Trojan Horse is dead, and the Fighting Irish keep alive.
So, Martin, last week in week 5, you got your first victory when it comes to the head-to-head matchups. Kind of a quick scroll here through the spreadsheet. We've tied on a couple. I've had some good weeks. But, Martin, out of the 15 matchups last week, when you actually look at it, this was my best week of the season. I won going 12-3. You had another slight sub 500 week at 7-8. Martin, the only contests I missed were those two massive upsets of the week. And I don't know why I continue to pick the Titans. I don't think I'm going to do that for a while as the Ravens took care of business on the road. But we both nailed the Chiefs. Joe Burrow did enough. The Bengals had a season-saving stop. If they go to 2-4, they're 2 games under 500. Instead, they hold Geno Smith just short when it mattered most, and they're still fighting for the playoffs. They're still alive. Jags looked good. Dolphins stomped. Rams, we both got that one correct. They won easily at home against the Cardinals. Bills got a controversial win despite being 15-point favorites. That one went down to the wire with the New York Giants. But Martino, we come to our overall records through the first 6 weeks. You are still above 500. No shame in that in the outright money line picks. There we go. But I am starting to creep back the lead that I had 59-34. So that is week 6 in the books. Week 7, here we go. Perhaps a new winner could be crowned. Perhaps Nay is going to, pull off the upset over me and Martin here on the guest edition of week 7 on the Coin Flip podcast. But without further ado, boys, are we ready to get into week 7?
I'll start first here with this one. Jags Saints. Supposedly Trevor Lawrence might not be going for Sunday due to an injury. Looking up news here, has made progress. That's a tough still. Nonetheless, I'm still taking Jags. I'm not even going to waste time on this one. I still think they're better than the Saints. Jags. Give me Jags.
Martin, I'll agree with you on the Jags. Obviously, this line is a little confusing. We're recording this on Tuesday. New Orleans is a 1-point favorite. That might tell me that they're thinking Trevor Lawrence might not play. I'm not really sure exactly who's the backup off the top of my head down there in Duval County and Jacksonville. But I'm going to roll with the Jags as well, especially if Trevor Lawrence plays. Travis Etienne's coming off of a nice 2-touchdown performance. He's got 5 total in the season. While Trevor Lawrence maybe hasn't looked good as he did at the end of last season, I think this is a primetime game. This is another kind of awkward game. They had 2 games over across the pond in London. So I think the Jags are going to be a little bit more used to playing in these rare circumstances. It is the Thursday night game to kick off Week 7. The Saints offense has struggled all season long. And if you believe it or not, the Panthers actually have scored the most points out of any team in the NFC South. That's more of a slight against the Saints, with Derek Carr as their quarterback than anything else. Martin, this team really has a hard time punching the ball in the end zone. They went 0 of 3 in the red zone last week. I'm rolling with the Jags as well. Nay, where are you going with this one?
I agree with both of you guys. I think the Jaguars, this one could potentially be a pretty close one, but I think they pull away late. I like, obviously, if Trevor Lawrence plays, I'm assuming he does. And I like his offensive weapons. And yeah, like you were saying with the Saints in the red zone, it seems like they just can't quite push the ball in. So I'm taking the Jags on this one.
Back around to Browns and Colts. Martin.
Browns and Colts. As much as I want to go with Gardner Minshew and the Colts, that Browns defense showed up last week. Yeah, they got away with a lucky one against the Niners. They should have probably lost that game if Moody doesn't hook that field goal right there. It's a different game. But PJ Walker showed enough that he could run an offense. The question is, will they have enough in the tank to go up against this decent Colts defense? I'm still taking Browns.
Now, Martin, pretty much my pick here is going to be off of one stat I saw this week, and that's through the first 6 weeks of an NFL season over the last 40 years. The Browns are number one. The 2023 Browns are number one in total yards allowed by the opposing offense, just about 200 per game. That's number one over the last 40 years through the first 6 weeks of the season. It doesn't matter if they grab a quarterback off the street or from the XFL. They're going to find a way to get it done against Gardner Minshew, who was really tallying up the picks last week with 3. So I'm rolling with the Browns as well.
Yeah, I think this one's a no-brainer for me. I picked the Browns, and it said that Watson might return, and that would be huge for the Browns. Obviously, coming off that injury, the shoulder bruise. So yeah, that's a no-brainer for me. The defense, I think, will dominate, to be honest. So Browns there.
Martino Belichick is back at home, hosting a familiar rival in Josh Allen and the Buffalo Bills. They're 8.5-point favorites on the road. How do you see this one playing out?
This one, you have to go with Buffalo. Mac Jones, Brian Hoyer, they're not enough at the quarterback spot to upset the Buffalo Bills. But, for a little note here, Jacob, I should have remembered Brian Daboll used to be the former offensive coordinator in Buffalo. So he knew what they were running on Sunday night. He just tried to, if he had an actual confident quarterback, the Giants probably could have won that game on Sunday night against the Bills because Josh Allen was just not comfortable at all that night. Winkdale down there brought enough pressure to make Josh Allen run around like crazy. Nonetheless, New England is still a mess. They're not in their right position. Buffalo's more talented.
Buffalo's certainly more talented, and I think they've dropped 2 games so far this season, Martin. New England's 1-5. It's hard for me to see. Now, I know nobody really saw them being this bad, but it's really hard for me to see the Patriots be a bottom 3 team in the league. I think they'll have a nice close to the season. Martin, I feel like teams that scrape by in one week often lose the next week. Belichick, he may not be the greatest GM. He might not be the greatest at picking coaches, but Martin, I still believe this guy can game plan. This is going to be quite the underdog pick, but I'm actually going to roll with the Patriots here. I think they're going to find a way to get it done. This could be one of those games where Mac Jones drops back 10 or less times again. We'll see what happens. I just think there's so much to be refound again with the Ramondre Stevenson in the run game. But kind of just going off of the philosophy I said earlier and trying to just pick some underdogs here consecutively on weeks, I'm going to roll with the Bills to drop this one after a shaky performance against the Giants. They're going on the road. This is a divisional game. We often see these spreads get covered by the underdog at home in the divisional contest. It's the Patriots. They've looked awful all season long. But somehow, some way, I think they'll get a few maybe defensive or special teams touchdowns. It's quite a shot in the dark. But I'm going to roll with the Patriots.
All right. Well, this one I feel like this is one of those games that is interesting every single year between the Bills and the Patriots. However, this is one of those years I feel like is a no-brainer. I feel like the Bills especially, they're just too talented, and one of the big storylines of this game to me is the Patriots defense is just super injured. I mean, they lost Christian Gonzalez, their corner. And I don't think they have enough juice on offense. Mac Jones it's to me is not an NFL QB. So I honestly think this one might be a blowout. So I'm taking the Bills on this one.
And speaking of corners, missing from New England, Stephon Gilmore coming up huge for the Cowboys on Monday night. Certainly has to feel rough in New England. But Martin, moving on to the fourth matchup here in Week 7, Washington is a 2-point favorite on the road against the hopeless Giants.
Yeah, the hopeless Giants or the Washington Commanders. The Commanders, they got themselves a good win over Atlanta this past week. They went down there and ruffled them up there. Sam Howell looked good. The defense looked good. Tyrod Taylor didn't look bad as a quarterback, but his offensive line is so bad that I think Chase Young might have himself a day finally. I don't know what's wrong with Chase Young personally, but I hope he comes back to being the beast that he was projected to be. I'm going to take the Commies. I have a feeling that they're just better than the Giants. If Saquon Barkley doesn't get anywhere, I just don't see how the Giants can get anywhere. Their offensive line is really, really, really bad. Give me the Commies.
Love the Commies nickname indeed. Martin, this is another underdog pick here. I'm going to roll with the Giants. It's hard for me to see them drop to 1-6. They've had, some terrible halves this season. Saquon Barkley still trying to get back last week. I think this week he's going to be back to 100%. This is the kind of game where you need to give Saquon 30 touches. 20, 22 on the ground, 8 to 10 in the air. You just got to feed this man all day and hope Daniel Jones, whoever's going to be rolling out there, in the second half of the Giants, because Daniel Jones could get injured, at any point. But the Commanders here, this pick is really about them. Martin, the Commanders were the team to lose to the Chicago Bears. And that tells me they are inconsistent. That tells me Sam Howell is still having his young QB struggles. I like the Commanders. They're a nice story. They should win this one on paper, but I don't think it's going to happen once again. Rolling with the underdog at home in the divisional matchup, I'm going with the Giants.
All right, Giants and Commanders. I am going to take the Commanders. I think it's going to be a closer game than people think, just because the Giants have shown flashes, especially with Saquon being back. But the Commanders have also shown enough flashes that I feel comfortable taking them in this game. I think it's going to be a close game. And above everything else, I do agree with Martin on this one, where the Giants' offensive line is absolutely terrible. I think Chase Young should have a big game and show what he's capable of. So give me the Commanders.
Baltimore -3 at home. That tells you Vegas doesn't really know where this one's going to go. But Martin, be careful who you pick here. This is your NFC North rival. This is Nay's team. Lions at Baltimore.
First, let's get this out of the way. I have no animosity towards the Lions. I actually like it when they're doing really good. I just wish it was the Bears and the Lions doing really good, because both Lions and Bears fans hate Packers, hate the Vikings. We just have plenty of damn good reasons to hate those teams. So no animosity towards the Lions. I'm taking the Lions in this one. For the Ravens, the Ravens have a good solid defense, but I still have questions about their offense. Lamar Jackson wasn't able to get anything going with them last time against Pittsburgh. They dropped 10 balls in that game. They just look too uncomfortable. No Odell Beckham Jr. Mark Andrews doesn't look comfortable. That offensive line is questionable. No running game in Baltimore. Lamar Jackson's on his own. As long as Detroit can find a way to put more consistent drives together, they did get 3-and-out shut out by Tampa Bay this past week. If they can consistently put more drives together, especially in the second half to close the game, they will win this game. They cannot start off fast in the first half and die in the second half. But still, give me the Lions.
This is definitely perhaps the hardest game to predict this week. And, despite me being maybe about an hour from Baltimore right now, in Maryland as I'm recording this podcast, despite all the Edgar Allan Poe energy that the Ravens are trying to channel, I like the Lions in this one. We might sweep here on the Lions in this matchup. Lions on the road here. Montgomery's listed as questionable. He's been a really nice piece. Of course, C.J. Gardner-Johnson is talking a whole lot of crap despite him being on the IR. But I like Detroit. I think in the NFC power rankings, in my opinion, it has to be 49ers, Eagles, and Lions. And you can even swap 2 and 3 if you're going to just totally wipe out last season. The Lions have looked really good. They've looked as good as any team in the conference outside of the 49ers, who I think are a step above. Jared Goff, this guy does exactly what the Lions need to do. Now, everybody wrote off Jared Goff coming over to Detroit, but he's done exactly what Dan Campbell's wished for. You can just tell the buy-in in Detroit, the players, listening to what the coaching staff is saying and going out and executing it in real time out on the turf is as good as any team in the league. Jared Goff protects the football as good as any quarterback right now in the NFL. 11-3 touchdown to interception ratio. 141 out of 203 in the air, so that's around 70% if I'm not mistaken there on the season. This guy is putting up perhaps a super, super quiet MVP campaign. I'm liking the Lions.
Yeah, we're going to have a sweep here, obviously. And I'm not just picking this just because I'm a little bit of a homer. Maybe I am. But this game I've been worried about this game for months, ever since the schedule came out. And I'll tell you exactly why. First off, the Ravens have Lamar Jackson. And everyone's like, okay, yeah, he's good. But Lamar Jackson is a running quarterback. And running quarterbacks happen to be the Lions' kryptonite. They are not invincible. We've always struggled against running quarterback. So it's going to be a super, super close game, but I feel like the Lions can pull it out as long as Jared Goff is firing on all cylinders.
Moving to the Coin Flip Podcast, Jacob Zimmerman, Martin Kelly, special guest Nay, all three Utah Tech students going at it here in the Coin Flip Podcast NFL Predictions Week 7. Martin, this is a special one. Bears at home against the Raiders. Although Las Vegas is a 3-point favorite, how does this one go down?
You already know where I'm going with this one. Do I believe Tyson Bagent can go down to Las Vegas? Excuse me, is it at home? No, it's at home. So Soldier Field, they're on the road. As long as they don't let Max Crosby do a bunch of damage, as long as they don't let Devontae Adams do a bunch of damage. So, listen, I already know it, but I'm picking the Bears every single game. I don't care. Maybe one day they'll surprise me. Hopefully this is it.
Martin has picked the Bears every single week of our podcast today, just to fill you in. Even against the Chiefs, he rolled with a homer pick. Martin, this is a tough one. I think even if Jimmy Garoppolo doesn't even play, I think they're still going to win this one. Max Crosby, he's going to go for 2 sacks. Justin Fields, he's doubtful in this moment. I hope to see him play. I don't want to, wish injury upon anybody, even if it's Martino's Bears. It's hard for me to see the Raiders having a winning record after Week 7 because they are 3-3 presently. But like we've kind of talked about, Martin, I think Justin Fields is a problem, but he is not the entire problem. And even with Fields not out there, there's still a whole boatload of issues going on. Do we even know if DJ Moore is going to touch the ball more than 3 times? They might just need to go out into a wildcat formation and have DJ Moore take a direct snap in this kind of game. You need to get your playmakers the ball. Before we started this podcast, Martin, you were kind of bashing on Foreman for his pass blocking a little bit, but the former Panther, is going to go at you there and get you 4 yards a carry. Use him as you wish, but when you just look at this one on paper, Josh Jacobs is probably due to have his best game of the season in this matchup. I'm rolling with the Raiders.
What's funny about this pick for me is I actually had the Bears in there, but I had to scribble it out once I learned that it's looking like Justin Fields isn't going to play. I think they had a shot. I would have picked the Bears at home with Justin Fields, but it's looking like he's out. So I'm going to go with the Raiders this time. I think without him, I really don't see it. Their defense, it just isn't there right now to contain the Raiders, and I picked the Raiders on this one.
Martin, your worst nightmare would be if that backup goes out there and throws for like 400 yards and 4 touchdowns and Justin Fields is on the hot seat. But moving on to the Falcons in Tampa Bay, both teams who are in the NFC South in my Panthers division. This is kind of a tale of two mediocre squads in my opinion. But Martin, what's your opinion on this contest?
I would have picked the Buccaneers in this game if Baker Mayfield was playing. If you asked me, Baker Mayfield or Desmond Ritter, who would win that game, I would have picked Baker. But Baker Mayfield's questionable for this game. I'm not sure if it was a hand injury or a shoulder injury. He got hurt late in the Detroit Lions game, so I don't know if he'll be fully cleared to play. It would mean that Trask would probably get the start for Kyle Trask for Tampa Bay. So I don't trust Kyle Trask in his first debut start against the Falcons. The Falcons are just offensively better and are just an overall better team. Drake London is questionable to come back for Falcons, but if Bijan Robinson and Kyle Pitts are out there, I think that's enough weapons for Atlanta to pull off the win. Give me the Falcons.
This is another 50-50. This is another back and forth. I could see this being a really close game down to the wire. Looking at the team stats here, the Falcons actually average about 55 more total yards offensively than the Buccaneers do, as great as Baker Mayfield's had a start to the season. There's a lot of inconsistencies with the Falcons, with getting the ball to Kyle Pitts. Bijan didn't go over 80 total yards last week. I think they're going to find a way to have Bijan Robinson have one of his best games of his young rookie campaign. Drake London, he went over 100 last week. If they continue to find a way to get the ball to these playmakers, I think they'll get it done. And so I'm going to slightly lean to the Falcons here, especially if Baker's out. If we know Baker 100% is going to play, I'm not so confident in that anymore because Desmond Ritter is your quarterback. And as long as Desmond Ritter is on the field, he can go out there and throw 3 picks one game and then 3 touchdowns the next. It's not confident. I'm going to roll with the team who has the best skill players in this one, and I think that's still the Falcons. I'll roll with ATL.
All right. This one, after watching the Lions play the Buccaneers this last weekend, I watched that whole game. Something stuck out to me a lot, and it was the Buccaneers defense has some dogs on it. I think the elite defense of the Buccaneers is going to give Desmond Ritter fits. So I'm taking the Bucs on this one. I know Baker Mayfield's questionable. I think he's probably going to play. It didn't look too serious in that game, but I'm taking the Bucs I think it's going to be a slugfest, like a low defensive score. I like Desmond Ritter and his weapons and stuff, but can he even get the ball to them? I don't even know. I'm not confident in him right now, so I'm taking the Bucs.
Rams at home against the Steelers. Another toss-up, just a 3-point home favorite for L.A. Martin, who you got, Steel City or the Shiny Lights?
This is going to be this one is tough only in the sense that will the Rams defense find a way to slow down the Steelers offense, or will Matt Canada get in his way and screw that Steelers offense some way? And can the Los Angeles Rams get off to a better start? They were a little slow versus Arizona. They didn't pick it up until about midway through the third quarter when they were starting to blow them out in the fourth quarter. Can Pittsburgh contain Cooper Kupp and Puka Nacua? Call me an underdog pick on this one. Call me an underdog pick. I'll give the Steelers a chance. Give me the Pittsburgh Steelers.
Taking the Steelers. Martin, that would mean the Steelers would go to 4-2, and I just cannot see that happening. The Rams preseason, when we did our over-under regular season win total projections, the Rams, I believe, were 7.5. And I said, Martin, I like the Rams until they get injured. And so I took over on that pick. I'm going to take the Rams here again. Obviously, Puka Nakua, my high school football teammate. I've seen this guy go off for years. While he did kind of take that first, step back, you go to social media, you go to any sort of football, fantasy football, pro football sort of pages. And you'll find people in the comment section with a Nakua on their fantasy team just dreading Cup's return of the last couple of weeks. Well, Cooper Cup finally really, not only came back, but said, hey, don't forget about me in that top 5 of who your best wide receivers are in present day in the National Football League. I'm still that dude. But I think if they find a way to, really balance fire and water here with Nakua and Cup, and if Stafford can just stop throwing these boneheaded picks, man. I like the Rams here. I like the Rams, but I think it comes down to more the incapabilities of the Steelers, how they've gotten to 3-2, how they have a winning record with as bad as their offense has been. Only God knows that one. George Pickens, he's a nice piece. Najee Harris, they haven't been able to figure it out. Despite the Steelers having the better defense here, I think the Rams will edge it out.
Yeah, that's interesting that you are Puka's teammate, Jacob, because I actually played against Jacob. I'm not played against Jacob. I played against Puka for so long. I played at Timpanogos, so I've had to personally cover Puka Nakua, and I have to tell you that guy is different. Like that, he's not a joke. Just because Cooper Cup came back, that guy's the real deal. But as for this game, I'm taking the Rams. I think the Steelers need to fire Canada. I don't usually call for people's jobs like that, but what I've seen from Pittsburgh time week in and week out, and I actually like that team, but they just have no offensive spark. They have some good pieces there, but none of it's gelling well. I just don't see them figuring it out this week against the Rams, who have been surprisingly good. So I'm taking the Rams in this one.
Find out live on the Coin Flip podcast. Jacob, myself, and Nay probably shared the football field a time or two, being sort of crosstown rivals there in Orem, north central Utah. Nice development. Cards and Seattle. Martin, Seattle's an 8-point favorite at home. The Arizona Cardinals have been a frisky team in the National Football League, but Seattle is pretty consistent. Where do you see this one going?
Witherspoon and that entire defense is getting a little better and better every week. They don't have the pass rushing that I wish they had up front. They need some more pressure on quarterbacks. Coverage-wise, they know how to disrupt quarterbacks back there. Geno Smith, Kenneth Walker, Jason Smith-Njigba, and DK Metcalf, that's all coming really together. Pete Carroll's got himself a good football team. I don't know if it's a well-balanced playoff team, but it's a fun team to watch this year. It gives the Seahawks something to watch considering they've had a couple bad seasons before this. The Cardinals are just not good enough. I love Dobbs, but their defense sucks. Give me the Seattle Seahawks.
Martin, you mentioned JSN, Jackson Smith-Njigba. I had a fantasy team at one point that was relative to Jackson Smith's Ninjas. That was my team for a moment, but I had to change it real fast because I realized this guy was barely getting any touches. Geno Smith had a rough closing in that fourth quarter, a game they probably should have won against Cincinnati. Martin, the Cardinals have been a nice story despite going 1-5 so far this season. They've really impressed a lot of people. Josh Dobbs had been sitting on the bench pretty much his entire NFL career after a special career at Tennessee. But you look at this one on paper, it's hard to pick the Cardinals. It really is. I don't think I can quite get myself to do it. I think it's going to be a close game. That crowd really in Washington is insane. That's truly one of the stadiums where you feel like there's a 12th man in there. You got DK and Lockett on the outside. There's so many weapons here. They have an endless running back room, it seems, year in and year out. I'm going to roll with Seattle here. How about you, Nay?
Jacob, I agree completely. I feel like Seattle, it's going to be a bounce back game for them. They just have too many weapons. DK and Lockett, as well as Jackson Smith-Njigba. Geno Smith, obviously, he hasn't had the same year as he's always had, but that team's still solid. And yeah, playing up in Seattle is absolutely dreadful for any team that has to come in there. I like the Cardinals, but I'm going with the Seahawks on this one.
Martin, your favorite team in the world, the Packers, are at the Broncos. This is going to be a stink fest of a game, perhaps. Martin, what are you thinking here, man?
Oh, my favorite team, huh? Well, the only reason why you would say that is because you forced me to pick them twice this season. So I'm gonna get you back some way, somehow, for making me pick that horrible, horrible below southern part of Canada that they won't accept for any bribery of money. I don't understand why they can get more land and own something. Will I pick the horrible Southern Canadians or will I pick the Broncos? I am going to pick. I'll pick Southern Canada again. The only reason why is because the Broncos are just so bad. The Southern Canadians won't turn the ball over that many times. They'll be fine there. The Broncos have really no defense, really no offense. It's just that bad. So Southern Canada wins another game.
Martin, Jordan Love had some nice flashes to start the season, and I was originally thinking the Packers were going to suck, and then I thought they were going to be pretty good. Maybe a sneaky underdog wild card team to squeak in as that seventh team with the boost in the teams that make the playoffs over the last couple of seasons. But Martin, at 2-3, this is the kind of game that you need to win if you're going to be one of those teams. But I'm looking at the stats here. As bad as we all know Russell Wilson and the Broncos have been, Russell Wilson has passed for over 200 more yards than Jordan Love. He has a 12-4 touchdown to interception ratio. Love's is just 8-6. You look at the leading rushers coming into this game. Neither team, I believe, according to ESPN, has a rusher over 200 yards on the season. I feel like the team who can successfully run the ball better in this game is going to get it done. Sean Payton had a lot of time this last year to just sit back in the media, go on Colin Cowherd and talk about the NFL, and it's been a rude awakening to his return to the National Football League. But I feel like late in the season, perhaps even now mid-season, they're going to find a way to slightly turn things around. I'm not going to say make the playoffs or anything, but I'm going to say avoid being in the sweepstakes for the quarterback out of USC, Caleb Williams. I think the Denver Broncos somehow find a way to get this done. And that's only because I really just don't trust a young quarterback on the road. I'm going the Broncos here.
So, yeah, this one's going to be a pretty close one, but the Broncos are just so bad. They are so bad. I cannot bring myself to pick them. I tried. I really tried. I sat there and I tried to justify it, but I got to go with the Packers on this one. I feel like Jordan Love has shown flashes. And I think what will really help him out is Aaron Jones is actually he's supposed to return this week. So they're saying he's going to play. So with Aaron Jones there back, I feel like it helps Jordan Love out just enough to beat the Broncos. And the Broncos they are just not good at all. And it's been satisfying to watch, honestly, just because of how much Sean Payton ran his mouth preseason. But so Packers for this one.
Martino, perhaps this is going to be a high-scoring matchup of the week. The Chargers, who, sometimes can't seem to stop a nosebleed. They have plenty of head coaching struggles going on. You kind of go to the other end of the spectrum of head coaches in the National Football League with Andy Reid. And, of course, the best player in the world at the moment, arguably, Patrick Mahomes. Still, they're 5.5-point favorites. Are the Chargers going to pull off the upset here, Martin, or are we going to see the same old Chiefs?
We're going to see the same old Chiefs. It will be a fun game. These two teams usually have fun games. There hasn't been too many, where Kansas City has blown out Los Angeles Chargers in the last 4 or 5 seasons. Even with Patrick Mahomes in Kansas City, they've always had these close games. I'm taking Chiefs. The only reason why I'm going to spend a minute on this conversation is because I feel so bad for Khalil Mack. He has been wasted in his entire career of being like the Lawrence Taylor type football player he could have been. He was wasted on the Raiders for one playoff series. He was wasted on the Bears for one playoff series. He got wasted last year with one playoff series with the Chargers. He's 0-3 in the playoffs. He's the Mike Trout of the NFL currently. He deserves better. He's a true Hall of Famer. He's the only player to be selected at the Pro Bowl in two positions, at the defensive end and at linebacker, because he was that damn good for the Oakland Raiders at that time. The Los Angeles Chargers love wasting players. They did it a generation before, and they're doing it again. The Chiefs are going to win this one.
Martin, this really feels like this would be another one of those weeks where the Chiefs just kind of say, what the heck? We don't really care about this game too much. But it's the Chargers. You just go Plaxico Burress and just shoot themselves in the leg a couple times a game. It just happens. Brandon Staley, for Chargers fans' sake, they just need to hope they go on a 5-game losing streak so Staley can get the heck out of there. The Chiefs are the Chiefs. If Taylor Swift shows up at all, forget it. Travis Kelce's going to go off. Mahomes is going to handle business. The Chiefs' defense still looking pretty nice. They're still probably top 5 in the AFC defensively. But this boils down to the hopelessness of the Chargers. Martin, kind of looking at some of their recent contests, they have not put up over 30 since their loss back on the 10th of September to Miami. Coming into the season, you would have thought for sure they would have dropped 30 plus multiple times so far into the season. It just hasn't happened yet. The Chargers, every week on paper, they look capable, and they don't turn out well. It doesn't bake well in the oven there in LA. I'm rolling with the Chiefs.
I mean, you guys both have one. This is going to be mine. I feel like I'm going with the underdog this time. That's the Chargers. I know they. Oh yeah, no, I got to do it because the Chargers. I mean, I think they bounce back this week and upset the Chiefs. And the thing with the Chiefs lately, I mean, look at their performances offensively. I'm not super impressed. I'm not blown away like I have been with past Chiefs teams. And I think at any minute they drop a dud. And I think the Chargers they have just enough to be the team that does that. I'm not overly impressed with the Chiefs offense. I don't know what's going on. I don't know if it's the whole Taylor Swift thing, but I just don't see it. I think the Chargers might sneak this one out.
Kansas City, their offense is also, yeah, you're right. They've only scored above 28 once in their last 5 games. So perhaps a sneaky good up there for Nay here on the Point Flip Podcast. We are rounding towards the end of Week 7. Martin, down to our primetime games here. Sunday Night Football, it's the Dolphins at the Eagles. Eagles only a 2-point favorite at home. This one's really a toss-up. But do the Fins walk into Philadelphia and get it done?
I don't know. This game is so hard to pick. And the reason why it's so hard to pick is because the Eagles offensively, just like the Chiefs, have not been so superior as they should be. They had struggles against the Los Angeles Rams. Obviously, they struggled against the Jets last week. They haven't really been a solidly sound football team like they were last year offensively, and they weren't really that way last year either. It was a lot of the defense. The Dolphins, they run wild everywhere, but the reason why I'm going to take the Eagles is because the last time the Dolphins were on the road, they lost. And the last road game they were part of was at Buffalo. And at Buffalo, they should have probably won that game, but they got blown out and they struggled to run and they struggled to cover all the receivers of Buffalo. If Devontae Smith, A.J. Brown, and the newly added Julio Jones find ways to get through the soft coverage of Miami, Jalen Hurts might have a better week. And they need to run the ball. I don't know if it's DeAndre Swift. I don't know if it's the play scheme, but they cannot run the ball to save their lives. And it's getting Jalen Hurts in a lot of worse situations than he should be in. They need a running game to help Jalen Hurts. They need something to balance his offense. Otherwise, it'll be a long day, and my pick is going to be wrong. But I'm taking the Eagles.
Good shout out there to Julio Jones with a Shaquille O'Neal impression late in his career, just signing with different contenders, hoping to win a ring. But Eagles at home, they have the better offensive line. They probably even have they definitely have the better defensive front, the front seven. The skill positions, I don't think it's that close. I think the Dolphins take that. Martin, this is a great game. This is a great storyline game, and this is perhaps the game where Tua Tagovailoa can grab the MVP trophy and take it and run with it. If he has another monster performance, if he's putting up stats like he has, throughout the season, if he goes 300 for 3 touchdowns in Philadelphia, gets a big win, I think Tua is your betting favorite to win the trophy. Uh, the Eagles have had their struggles. They've had their struggles more than just last week. Martin, when I was looking at their rushing success last week, it did not go well. I mean, anytime Jalen Hurts is a great, dual threat quarterback, but anytime Jalen Hurts leads the Eagles in rushing, that means they had a really bad day handing off to Swift, to Gainwell. Uh, they got to establish the run. And I don't see that happening against the Dolphins. They might be able to do it. They might be able to waste some clock. The Dolphins just score so fast. The Eagles' secondary has been a little suspect. Tyreek Hill's just been a nightmare all season long. I'm going to roll with the Dolphins and perhaps one of the games of the year.
Oh, absolutely. I feel like this is one of the games to watch. This one I've been looking forward to all week. I feel like I'm going to take the Dolphins on this one pretty comfortably, honestly. The Dolphins are explosive and fast, and I feel like this is the you touched on it a little, Jacob, but I feel like this is the week that the Dolphins kind of expose that Eagles secondary a little bit. I feel like they've been able to bide their time. I mean, going up against quarterbacks like Zach Wilson and the Commanders, and but I feel like it's time. There's just too many weapons, and they're just too fast on the offensive side of the ball. And the Eagles like to sit there and control the clock. But if they can't, the Jets put up 20 and beat the Eagles last week. And I get teams have bad games and stuff like that, but the Dolphins are going to put up more than 20, and I don't know if the Eagles can necessarily keep up with that, especially with how they play. So, Dolphins in this game.
Me and Nay both rolling with the Fins from Miami. Martin, we are rolling on to Monday Night Football. 49ers at the Vikings. Martin, is there any chance at all the Vikings pull off the stunner?
Thinking about it and talking about it, there's a possibility they could pull this upset. And the reason why I would say there's a possibility is because Deebo Samuel and Christian McCaffrey are questionable to come back. And if we saw anything with the Niners, when you take their two best skill position players away, it becomes very hard for Brandon Ayuk and for Kittle to get open. The Vikings have not been offensively bad. They've just been defensively bad. And for some reason, there's been a lot of miscues with that. Am I taking the Vikings offense or am I taking the Niners defense? Give me the underdog pick. I'll take Southern Canada Part 2. Give me the Vikings.
Wow. Martin, we did not force you into that one at all. I am shocked. Martin, I'm going to be just blunt here. I think San Francisco is going to win by about 4 touchdowns. I think they're going to be angry. They're going to bounce back. Whoever the heck their kicker is going to be kicking 100 field goals a day. Can't believe you missed a 40-yarder straight on to win the game. But nevertheless, I think Kirk Cousins is still a top 10 quarterback, barely. I think he gets harped on a lot, even in this down season. And I don't want to say this in a way that's negative to Kirk Cousins, but just the facts that primetime Kirk does not win games, and the 49ers just do what the 49ers do. McCaffrey can be hurt. Deebo Samuel can play one quarter. It's not going to matter. I got Brock Purdy having a bounce-back game. Brock Purdy right now is like the Russell Westbrook of the NBA. You got, half of the fan base that says he's great right now. You got the other half of the fan base that says he's really bad right now. All I know is that Brock Purdy manages the game in the way that gets it done for the 49ers, and he did lead them down the field to that field goal attempt last week. I'm rolling with the Niners. I don't think this is tough. I'm shocked that you picked the Vikings, Martin, all things considered of who you're a fan of. I got the 49ers by about 28 points this week.
Yeah, one thing I noticed about the 49ers, whenever they lose kind of an ugly game that they shouldn't have lost, the very next week they usually come out and take out their anger on the next team. And the team they're facing this time, I mean, without Justin Jefferson, I have no idea how the Vikings would ever pull this one out. I'm taking the 49ers. I think Brock Purdy, you're right. He did lead them down the field. I feel so bad for the kid, especially after Moody just misses that field goal, which he should never miss. But, I mean, I'm taking the 49ers in this one by a large margin. It's not going to be one you should watch. So,
good point on Justin Jefferson, too. I almost forget he's out for a little while. But those are your Week 7 predictions here on the Coin Flip Podcast. Martin, Jacob, and Nay, predictions on screen. I faded you guys quite a bit at first. I have a feeling I'll either have a good week or an under 500 week again. Martin, we like to touch a little bit on these teams in the bye week, and there's now 6 teams in this bye week, the most we've had so far through the 2023 NFL season. Martin, we'll keep things quick. I'll actually just start with the Panthers here. Martin, they're 0-6. This is the time to shape yourself up, get things together, and this is the stretch that Bryce Young needs to go on to prove that he is not bust-worthy at all. Go back to the drawing board, figure out how to get Miles Sanders involved like he was in Philadelphia. I know we are nowhere close to their offensive line. As far as defensively, this is a week of rest. I'm praying not one of our top defenders gets hurt. We've had some rough injuries here and there with some of our top guys. Brown on the front line's been a little beat up, although I think he's going to be good by the next time the Panthers go around. We've lost our starting linebacker, our best corner, our best safety. We are barely even playing right now. I don't know why he's not getting a ton of snaps with Jeremy Chin. But nevertheless, Martin, I'll hand it over to you if you want to talk about the Bengals, Cowboys, Texans, Jets, or Titans.
I don't care about the Bengals. I don't care about the Cowboys. I don't care about the Jets or the Titans. I just want to talk about the Texans, and I want to talk about the Texans, especially with another team who's on the bye, which is the Panthers. Which is the conversation all summer was, who are you going to take? CJ Stroud, Bryce Young, CJ Bryce. Well, Bryce went to Alabama. He's a national champion. He played for Nick Saban. Well, CJ Stroud played at Ohio State. All Ohio State quarterbacks suck, and they don't know how to throw the football. They don't know how to read defenses. They turn the ball over all the time. They don't do any of the right things. Listen, I have my own Ohio State quarterback. He's just on a bad team. Wish he was on a better team. Maybe he would prove the doubters wrong. But this Ohio State quarterback, this Buckeye down in the Lone Star State, is proving everybody wrong. CJ Stroud is confident. He's stepping up in the pocket. He's getting the ball to everybody. Robert Woods, Schultz, Dell, everybody. As soon as John Mechie is totally clear and ready to come back, he's going to throw the ball to Mechie. Their defense is playing solid. The only embarrassing game they played all year was against Baltimore on week 1. Besides that, the Texans have been the best story all season so far of being a team that should be bad, should be 1-5, should be competing for a top pick, are decently fighting in a terrible NFC South division. The Texans are on the rise. CJ Stroud is proving that he probably should be the rookie of the year so far.
And Nay, I want you to close this one out, kind of almost rapid fire style. Give me one area of improvement for the Bengals, Cowboys, Jets, and Titans.
for the Bengals, this is one thing that Joe Burrow has never been. He hasn't been 100% this entire year. It's been really kind of frustrating to watch, especially for Bengals fans. That calf injury has been lingering. And I feel like they need to really rest up and get him to 100%. Otherwise, they stand no chance. Right when they come out of the bye week, the Bengals go against the San Francisco 49ers and then the Buffalo Bills right after the bye week. So they got a tough slate coming up. That's where they need to improve as far as what they need to do in the bye week and stuff. And then you were going to talk about the Cowboys, right?
No, you go ahead and you mentioned the Cowboys. Yeah, go for the Cowboys.
The Cowboys are actually in a really favorable position, in my opinion. I feel like I mean, obviously they had that really good win against the Chargers, a tough win. Nobody thought they were going to get that one done, but they did. So they need to get some people healthy there and make sure that they're firing on all cylinders, because when they come back, I mean, they play the LA Rams at AT&T Stadium, and the Rams have been giving people problems. So with the Jets, obviously they need to get something going with Zach Wilson. Obviously, some of the chemistry hasn't been there with him and the receivers. They need to figure out what they need to do and what identity that they're going to inherit, whether they're going to pass or whether they're going to run. They need to get Breece Hall back up to speed with this team in this bye week. And then you said the Titans. With the Titans, I mean, Ryan Tannehill's injured right now. They got to get him healthy. It's a high ankle sprain, and they have to figure out, if he's not able to go, out of which of the two quarterbacks are they going to take? Because we saw a little bit of Malik Willis in this last game, and everyone's not too impressed with that. So there's kind of like rumors that they're flirting with Will Levis over there, one of their top picks in the second round this year, and so it'll be nice. It'll be kind of like interesting to see which route they go, whether they roll with Levis, who won against who didn't win against Malik Willis in camp, or if they keep going with Malik Willis. So
I'll close out with a hot take on one of these bye teams, and it's the Tennessee Titans. I think the Tennessee Titans should blow it up, and I think they should trade Derrick Henry. They should do this man a favor. Try to get a first-round pick for this guy to reboot your rebuild that you need to go into. The Tennessee Titans, Mike Vrabel is a nice coach, but they need to hit the reset button. The Jets have their struggles this year. We just need to stop talking about the Jets until Aaron Rodgers comes back next year. Cowboys will be the boys, and the Bengals perhaps could turn into the Super Bowl contender we think they all could be. That's the Coin Flip Podcast, Week 7 in the National Football League. We are 6 weeks through this thing. Martin, I've got a chokehold on the lead right now, but you could come back certainly with some of the underdog picks I made this year, or maybe even Nay is going to take the win for this week. But Nay, appreciate you being the guest, doing a guest appearance here on the Coin Flip Podcast. You did an awesome job, my man. I can't wait to see how your picks play out.
yeah, thanks, man. Thanks for having me on here.
Martin, any closing thoughts?
Let's have a good week, and maybe I can turn it around.
That's the Coin Flip Podcast, folks. Tune in next week to see how we did in Week 7 and get our Week 8 predictions, of course. I'm Jacob. That's Martin and A. Have yourself a great night.